People talk about the mystique of hockey stick growth. It travels around like some urban legend, only growing as time goes on. But is it actually real? Has anybody seen it? Well, it is, and we just saw it. Now, what if I told you that Wilco's Yankee Hotel Foxtrot might have inspired it all? Today, we come to this conversation a little differently than we do most. We're going to talk about ourselves and some recent successes. We like to be selfish every once in a while, right? But some recent successes that I think are inspiring for many that find themselves in the doldrums of technology and finding growth. We ourselves unlocked 100K in MRR just a past month ago. And we want to break down how the heck we got here, what it took to get here, and of course, through Stacy's lens in revenue operations, Michael from the vantage point of a CEO, and from a marketer who is adjacent to the conversation. A lot of exciting stuff to share with you today. But first, we want to talk a little bit about the musical inspiration that kind of bubbles up into much of what today's talking points are about. So, without further introduction, let me introduce you to Yankee Hotel Foxtrot by Wilco, an album that speaks for itself. Many might put this on their top 10 list, top 5, maybe it's their favorite record of all time. Michael, can you draw a parallel between today's conversation of growth and then a preeminent record like this?
Yeah, so this is the only Wilco record that I own.
Oh, okay.
Because I actually can't stand Wilco. But right. This record is excellent. It was a huge departure from where they were. Yeah. And I think where they were, it was very cliquey. It was very like, you either into Wilco or you were not. Yeah. And this record, it seemed to, again, reach out to a different audience, and it really expanded who they were as a band. You listen to the first track, what is it, Drummer?
Heavy Metal Drummer?
No, what's the first track on the album?
Oh, it is. Yeah, let's get in there. Let's take a peek ourselves. I'm trying to break your heart.
I'm trying to break your heart, right. So it starts off and you're like, okay, I'm in a Wilco record. Yeah. And then it quickly starts to break down. Yeah. And you almost hear this kind of Syd Barrett, kind of Pink Floyd influence coming in from the 70s. Like the way that they are now leaning more into the studio production is something that they hadn't really done before this. And they took a bold risk. Like, I believe their original label didn't even want to put out the album. Did not. But they believed in it. They believed in the direction. They knew where they wanted to go. They trusted their fan base to follow them. And I think that's really what we're talking about today, is they knew what was going to be beneficial for them. They knew how to better serve their audience, but it was a risk. And it was a bit of a departure of where they had been, but it opened up a ton of opportunity for them.
Yeah, I love that. You sit at the center of risk. Tell us about your parallels here.
Yeah, so I actually listened to, I think it was Sweet Tooth, Sweet something, was their previous album, because I wanted to hear the differences, right? And the Sweet something was a lot, not harder, but a little bit more upbeat, a little bit more fuller sounding than this, and this seemed more like almost happy-go-lucky, like every day. So that approachability and that like more appealing to more people, I can definitely see how that was successful. But in a weird way, that doesn't. When you say like risk, I'm like, sounds like you would hear it at the store or like anywhere. Like I'm like, how is that risky? So, but if you heard what they were playing before, you're like, oh, gotcha. Yeah, I can see it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely introspective. It has some uncertainty, and our topic today was much about how we overcame uncertainty. Some self-reflection allowed us to accomplish something relatively seismic for a SaaS product that's now over 10 years old. Hockey stick moments don't often come about that often. So I'd like to get to that, but first I want to talk about some songs on the record, because it is such a damn good record. Michael, I know it's the only one you own, but where are some kind of the hallmark moments on this record for you?
Yeah, so it goes from I'm Trying to Break Your Heart, which is kind of this a bit more experimental side of Wilco.
Let's forget about the tongue-tied lightning. Let's undress just like cross-eyed strangers. This is not a joke.
And then we get 2 or 3 tracks of, I feel like a little bit more at home to Wilco.
On the nose, yeah.
And then you kind of hit Jesus, etc.
Jesus, don't cry. You can rely on me, honey. You can come back.
And all of a sudden you start to feel something a little bit bigger than I think they had been able to reach in the past. Yet it's still pretty stripped down. It's very mellow, but it has this beauty to it that I hadn't seen previously or really recognized in their work. And it's kind of this moment in the record where it's a bit of a departure from a little bit more of the lightheartedness and into something that feels very emotional.
Yeah, no question. Stacey, you spent some time with the record, a few feels.
I did, yeah. The heavy metal drummer, I think it was. You referenced that earlier. I'm like, yeah. Out of all of them, that was the one that I picked out too.
I miss the innocence I've known. Playing Kiss covers, beautiful and stone.
It's got a little bit more, a little faster, and a little, I don't know, it's just more like makes me want to...
And there's synths inside of it, as opposed to all these folksy instrumentation. It didn't come electronic synths, which I think was probably quite a deviation from former Wilco stuff.
Yeah, exactly, and so I just like connected with it a lot more. But it was a little bit different, so I just am kind of like, well, this is way different than all their other stuff, so I guess I like this one more than the other.
Yeah. I found myself, so Jeff Tweedy, his vocal tonality and timbre is something that's truly unique to Wilco, and I think is really the underpinning of most of their success. I thought a lot of the music and the sound beds really kind of created such a great stage for his voice. And for me, I think that's why this record has become so classic and so longingly adored, because his performance track after track, boy, oh boy, I mean, what a unique performance. And I thought it was just so compelling. Jesus, etc. I mean, obviously it's the most popular song as far as commercial success, but another great showcase of Jeff's voice. I thought Heavy Metal Drummer also captured a lot of that as well. And we'll give the listeners a little taste of what these songs are. But some really cool stuff, really cohesive, I thought. I mean, my goodness, records that have stood the test of time tend to have this thread that just travels throughout with, minor deviations. I thought Yankee Hotel Foxtrot was an exemplary piece of music, or of recording that showcased that. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, well, that's a little bit about the record, but again, there's this exciting story about how Leadpages found itself to some success that we want to celebrate, but also point in the direction of how a new customer profile might inform strategies of today and tomorrow. So, Michael, take us a little through what it took to get to this conversation of a lot of MRR in a single month.
Yeah. So when Leadpages was founded, right, the way that I knew it, I was in San Diego. Comes this startup out of Minneapolis, and really it felt like a tool for marketers and a tool for marketing teams to avoid using their engineering resources, right? So it was directly tied into ads, it was directly tied into the marketing stack. Somewhere along the way, we really started focusing on the solopreneur customer. How do we get them online? How do we solve the problems that they have, which is much different than the problems of a marketing team, because they really wanted us to be everything. They wanted us to be their CRM, their ESP, their and their domain. And we were solving those problems, but we were certainly always kind of at a tension point where half of our customers are companies, and the other half are entrepreneurs. And it felt like we had reached this kind of tipping point where we needed to decide which way are we gonna go. And in looking at a lot of the internal customer data, it was really clear that marketing teams needed us. They stuck with us longer. They had higher volume of usage for the product, and that if we didn't choose them, the product was going to continue to become move in too many different directions that a small team like ours wasn't really able to service. And so we were kind of letting everyone down in trying to make everyone happy. And that's really where I think the beginning of this project was we have a choice to make. Who is our customer and how are we going to serve them moving forward? Yeah. And that's when Stacy came in, and we started looking at the data, the customer data, and there was actually some pretty surprising kind of elements underneath the surface of it, if you want to speak to them.
Yeah, give us the mechanics, Stace, because people are probably on the fringe or on the edge of their chair going, "Now, tell us how you did it, though." Would you please?
I just have this wand. I don't know if you've seen Wicked, but it's very similar to Glinda's. No, so I think one of the first things that was we started talking about this misalignment that we were experiencing and trying to be everything to everyone, basically. When we were kind of talking about that with the team and trying to think of different solutions and things like that, you could just kind of see apprehension on people's faces naturally, right? We're talking about a big potential shift. We're going to change. Just change in general can invoke that reaction. And so what I kind of noticed is that in order for us to really move forward and really put our everything behind it, we had to get the team on board first. Yeah. And so, hey, come on board, it's gonna be great, I swear. Just trust me, all those, like none of that's really gonna work, right? It only works to so much. And we needed everyone to really 100% believe in us. And so coming up with kind of a risk test and just going out and saying, you know what, here's what we're gonna do. Let's just do it with a small chunk of people and let's see what happens. And then let's let the data, the numbers speak for themselves. And so we did that and we saw the results were phenomenal. We were way better than what we thought. We took our riskiest customers. We made some price adjustments, some other product adjustments with them, and blew it out of the water. And then once we kind of presented those to the teams, it was almost like you could see the shoulders just like relax, like we're breathing, and now you could actually start talking about the mechanics of how we're going to do it to the rest of the customer base, thinking like, wow, this is actually a very exciting opportunity, apprehension's gone, and now let's get down to business.
Yeah, so you got into kind of some most advanced customer segmentation that allowed us to tailor fit some messages to those that were going to have a change in their relationship with Leadpages. So could you take me through a little bit of what segmentation allowed? Because I think we got to treat cohorts of customers independent of their use case, which I thought was really important to, reducing churn propensity, which allowed us to achieve some great, revenue results.
Yes, so we had a majority, so we had about half of our customers fell into this kind of misalignment that as we're labeling it. And so of the half, a majority of them were on discounted plans. And so just treating them as one, to your point, was like, whew.
Yeah, too bold.
Very bold, the discounts were quite varied. And so looking even further at them and looking into usage and looking at the number of pages and all these other smaller metrics allowed us to come up with a risk test, a risk kind of score for each of them, and then based on their score, treat them accordingly. So there's that advanced segmentation, again, based on what they're showing, what they're telling us what they want and what they're doing, and then so can we price and can we adjust accordingly. So then that way we're not treating everyone the same, expecting just one big result. A lot of work, I will say, a lot of details, a lot of things that you gotta go through with the team and comb through all those details, but it definitely has worked, as you can kind of see from the result today.
Yeah, and Michael, I think the one thing that's important to spotlight also is the alignment with the product usage. We had some power users that were excelling on our platform, probably extracting more value than maybe they were being charged for. So could you take us a little bit through what we were just doing to right-size that relationship with our customers?
Yeah, well, we wanted to be able to serve them better. That's really the goal, right? And because we had these really steep discounts, and over the years, even the discounts didn't align with a customer type. Yeah. And we had really been exclusively speaking to kind of this entrepreneur, solopreneur customer. We'd been acquiring companies and marketing teams and marketing agencies along the way who also found value. And everyone was kind of mixed into this pot. So part of it was kind of pulling apart who needed what from us and how can we better align what they needed to their subscription, right? Yep. We can only give so much support to customers that are paying even below our market rate. Yep. So if customers need a lot from us, we wanted to be able to serve them and then also have the resources to build product for what they need next, right? Yep. We've been talking a lot about change. We've been talking a lot about AI. We've been talking about what's going to happen in the future. We need to be ready to serve them and give them what they need from our product, or else they will start looking elsewhere. But we can service them, but we needed to kind of right-size some of that relationship in order for us to have the resources to better give them what they needed.
I think that's so important because you start throwing on these large numbers, 100K in MRR. Oh wait, it sounds like a greedy grab or whatever. But it was much to do with the reinvestment into our customers, into the products that serve them into their future. So without tipping your hand and showing the roadmap of the future, can you tell us how we're maybe taking these resources and better applying to what the customer gets at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, we are hiring now for the first time in a while.
Yeah, it's exciting.
we are looking to expand our product and engineering teams. And really one of the main focuses is how do we expand past being a landing page builder exclusively. It'll always be, it's our core, it's what we do, but really what do people hire us for? To collect leads. And that modality is changing into the future. So we're looking at different ways that what are customers going to need in 6 months? What are they going to need in a year? And how is our space changing? And how do we make sure that our customer has the tools that they need when we get to 2026, when we get to 2027? That's going to look a lot different than it does today. And even today looks a lot different than it did 10 years ago.
Sure does.
And so we need to be able to give more insights. We need to give different modalities. We need to be able to use data. Our customers, we need to be able to better translate our customers' data, give them insights from what is actually happening on their pages, in their campaigns. So that's a lot of what we're working on is how do we better service a client that doesn't just need a landing page, they need a lead generation solution.
I think that has to be exciting for anybody that is a current customer of Leadpages to hear is that we are firmly investing into their future as much as our own. But I mean, I think that's something that gets lost in a lot of these pricing updates or migrations or whatever it might be, is that it doesn't show up as such. But we really are committed to that. And like you said, we're hiring, we're getting the people that will secure their future within our technology. So I think everybody should be thrilled about that. And Stace, I wanted to hear from you just a little bit. You have product around you all the time. We're talking about it actively. What do you think from this perspective, I guess?
Yeah, so Michael, I think, teed me up for my favorite analogy of the toolbox.
Yes.
I love this one, and I don't know if anyone else loves it as much as me. So talking about, basically, we're trying to give our customers tools to collect leads, right? Before, we were trying to focus on one tool, like building a really awesome hammer. It's got all the bells and whistles. It's great. It's got everything you need. It's still a hammer, though, at the end of the day. Now, taking this new philosophy of we're trying to give them, here's your toolbox, here's a hammer, screwdriver, I mean, whatever, any tools that you want to collect leads, they're in here, and then pick your size of toolbox. That's a huge philosophy switch, I think, for us. And so as we're talking about kind of this new customer, those customers do need a toolbox, right? They're not just hammering nails, where maybe the solopreneur was more on that side of I need just a couple tools, I'm good, like I don't need much, but we're building for multiple tools now. And so making sure that we align and we know, like, hey, here's have you tried this? What about this? Like, oh, you're building a house, you should get this one. Oh, you want to build a birdhouse? Here, over here. So just being able to serve all of them in that way, and letting them choose what tool they need and not telling them, it's this, you need the hammer. For sure, don't worry, we know it's a hammer.
Yeah. What's allowed us to firmly plant our flag next to the marketing community, right, is showing that we know what we need and we're invested in building that in the future and hopefully providing unique utility that you can't find elsewhere, so much so that the relationship we have is only strengthened by this, this investment that we're talking about. So.
Yeah, and if we tie it back in, I mean, this is exactly what Wilco did when taking a bit of a departure.
Great call.
Was they had to bring their customer base along with them. They didn't bring everyone. They left some behind.
Inevitably.
Right? Some people only wanted the true pure Americana. And it's similar to what we've done here. And I think a lot of businesses, when you start out or you reach this period of unknown, you start to serve everyone. And you get to a point where it works, right? Because you can get a little bit over here and a little bit over here. But if you never find that thread that actually connects everyone together, you end up being really stretched thin. And I think it's a really tough position for anyone running a business to be in, is to have to constantly juggle the different needs of the customer. And the companies that have scaled, they've found that thread and they've leaned into it, and they've been able to build a product that satisfies for that specific need.
Yeah.
And I felt like we were in that point in time where we were spread really, really thin, trying to kind of service everyone, duct tape everything together, but it was really stretching us past our capacity. And so in choosing what are we going to be in the future and what customers do we serve the best, that gives us focus. It allows us to give them the best product back. And if some people aren't along for the ride because they needed a different tool that we no longer provide, we're okay with that. That's, we are who we are, and I think we need to own that for who we can make successful.
I love that.
Yeah, owning who we are and saying, yep, not anymore, it's okay. I think that is a huge, just being able to say that. And even when we said it to our team, like when people, what if we get people to, they're gonna cancel, all this stuff. Well, actually, we aren't seeing many people cancel. Our churn rate is almost identical to what it was a couple months ago, even though half our customers we've just changed.
Yeah.
And so the product does align in that sense, but then also we were okay though too. We're like, yep, some people are gonna leave and that's okay. Like, we don't need to be liked by everyone. I almost feel like it's a popularity contest a little bit.
Yeah.
Like we're back in middle school.
We don't want anyone to say no to us, but the fact is, we are only so big and we can only do so much, even with AI. So it felt like a choice that needed to happen. It was hard to bring the team around. I don't think we can emphasize that enough. There was a lot of trepidation. I understand why. And it took us months to prove to ourselves and to the team that we were gonna be okay. Like, we can do this. And what we were seeing in kind of our customer analytics was true. Because even if we had all this evidence, here's the customer base, this is what they look like, but people still didn't believe it because it hadn't been who we were actually talking to on the outside.
Well, and I think they also didn't believe because we'd tried doing this a few years prior. Word is on the great, word on the street is, and that didn't go so well.
Right.
And so there's that PTSD from those who were around then, like, oh my gosh, we been there, done that, like, nope, didn't work. Are you sure you want to do this? And I think kind of walking them through the customer segmentation and showing how we aren't just going to treat everyone as the same person, and that we're doing this, and all that kind of stuff did help with that confidence, because without that confidence, it just manifests itself in ways, if it comes out in the writing or if it comes out in how we deliver it to customers, that apprehension can be felt, whether we can put our finger on where it is or not.
Yeah, we talked earlier today about kind of empathy and care, and we approach this very much so with that. I mean, we care a lot about our customers. Any business does. We fight like hell to get these customers, and once we've kind of created this relationship, we do want to hold on to it while honoring we are who we are, and we want to serve those who need us to the best of our abilities. So a lot of themes are kind of finding their way to this conversation, which I like very much as a marketer. As we button up this conversation, though, I mean, big things like this come with some lessons learned, sometimes harsh, sometimes like, what a pleasant surprise that was. Stace, I want to start with you. Key lesson you learned, and maybe a takeaway for the listener/viewer.
Key lesson. For me, it's that I'm going back to selling the team. That, I think, is the biggest and hardest lesson that I didn't anticipate. I didn't know how big of a hurdle it was going to be. I didn't know how much of a consequence it was going to be. And so once that was done, once I felt like we got the team on board, then everything just like fell into place. Lots of work, of course, but like that was the biggest hurdle, not the, oh my gosh, our customers, all of that. It was getting the team. So I think that is, to me, is the one thing, if we were to do it again, I'd focus more on and place more importance.
You see me smiling ear to ear. Remember a few years ago when we didn't work at Leadpages, we worked at a different business. I talked to you about internal selling.
I knew you were going to say that. I have it written down right here, internal selling. A
couple of years ago, Stacey, I would talk to her, but like, girl, we have to find a way to sell to those internally to get to the external conversation. She side-eyed me and rolled her eyes 1,000 ways to Sunday, but here we are.
That was because you said I didn't do it. Come on, you're rewriting history.
The fun is we have stories from the past to find to today, but yes, it's fun. You're right. The commitment to the team and to the message that gets them confident in what we're doing, it's so critically important no matter how you coin it. So love that takeaway. Michael, from your desk.
Yeah, I think, well, one of the things that we talked about today was curiosity. And I think every company has these kind of stories that we repeat and we tell ourselves, these kind of mythologies internally. I think sometimes you have to take a step back and question, do we really know? Are we sure? Is this the truth? And when we do that, sometimes things change over time. So the stories that were relevant 4 years ago and maybe created growth, they may not be as relevant today. Maybe there's a new story emerging. Maybe it's an old story coming back. But if we never stop to question, are we sure we know that? What makes us so sure? Can we get confidence in that assumption? Then we miss opportunity like this, where we may not have discovered this customer type that was in Leadpages, but one that we were not externally talking to or trying to reach out to or even trying to build for. And once we did that, we were able to open up a huge opportunity for us.
No, it's fantastic. And I think this will resonate with a lot of people that have faced similar challenges. And then the few that have found successes will appreciate how we got here. But maybe for those that have some trepidations, this conversation maybe calms those nerves and might let them have the tough internal discussion that gets them to this output that has been a successful endeavor for us at Leadpages. So I want to thank you both for sharing a bit of an intimate story, right? You don't often want to bring it out to the four walls, but we're trying to be relatable and authentic, so much so that the listener sees we're not here just to sell you stuff. We're here to inform, educate, and have this kind of ride-along experience. I think no better example than today's conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.